Hi everyone and welcome to my third update for the learning series. Me, James Hopwood, UK Agriculture Manager here at Birdseye. And today's the 22nd of April and it's World Earth Day. And really climate change poses the biggest challenge to the future of humanity. So on an individual basis, as we challenge ourselves to what we can do to help us get towards that net zero target where we need to be, I'm thinking creatively, innovatively and ambitiously about how we can work with our farmers to improve what we do in our production of these peas and the other crops within the Nomad group, coming up with ideas and solutions to work towards that net zero target. So you might wonder why I'm holding a tablespoon of soil, and we'll come to that in just a moment. But I'm going to talk around soil because soil's a fascinating thing. It might not be the most glamorous, but soil really is one of the underpinning principles and one of the underpinning substrata for life on Earth. And we go back to the evolution of man and how we went into farming, and really managing our soils has been absolutely crucial to the success of humans. Soil acts as a reservoir for water and for nutrients, but it's also a filtration device and an Earth's filtration device for its own natural pollutants. It's significant within the carbon cycle, and soil's evolved through many weathering processes over the course of time, driving biological, climatic, geologic and topographic influences that have created the soils that we have today. And we're very lucky in this part of the world, in this temperate climate of the UK, where we have exceptionally good soils with good organic matter levels, and we need to look after these and conserve these soils, and that's how we start to work with our farmers. And soil science has developed over that time. We now have a really good understanding of how we can manage soils to try and get the best out of them. In one respect, we understand some of the processes, chemical processes, the transfer of ions and electrons within the nutrients in the soil, and how we use this interaction to help get the best crops we can do. And through the last 50 to 60 years, the knowledge around nutrient management and soils to deliver crops have been very, very good. Phosphate, for example, we know doesn't move very much in soil, and therefore we apply a small amount of phosphate to the crops to give them a kickstart, because roots need phosphate to develop. We also know that crops can't take enough nitrogen out of the atmosphere, so we apply nitrogen. But some soils are very, very good at holding some minerals and nutrients such as magnesium. We also know of the texture of soil. So we know that soil is composed of sands, clays and silts. Sand, very big particles in reality, up to or from 0.05 millimeters to 2 millimeters. We know that silts are slightly smaller, from 0.002 to 0.05 millimeters. And we know that we've got very small particles, clay particles, in some of our soils, and these are less than 0.002 millimeters in size. We know that the combination of these particles together ultimately come together to form aggregates, and we create networks and understand how moisture and nutrients flow through these different soils. We also know that we need to build organic matter within soils, and there's some fascinating facts around organic matter. And I mentioned it on the last lesson, but ultimately a 1% increase in organic matter per hectare can ultimately hold an additional 300,000 litres of water per hectare. And we'll go out to the field over there in a moment and just look at how big a hectare is. That's a phenomenal amount of water. So we're working hard to build our organic matter layers with our farmers. But soil as a living system, it is absolutely fascinating, some of the facts and figures. A quarter of all known species on Earth call soil their home, and more than 7 billion organisms are currently sat on this tablespoon. Phenomenal, mind-blowing facts that I am currently holding as many organisms as there are people on Earth. But that said, we have only ever identified, and scientists have only ever identified, 1% of the organisms that are currently on this spoon. That said, 95% of all the food we eat comes from soil. comes from growing crops on soil. And so it's really, really important that we look after our soil, because our soils hold nearly 10 billion tonnes in the UK, hold nearly 10 billion tonnes of carbon. And therefore, we can do such a huge amount within agriculture, within food, to help the course of climate change. So we're working really hard with our farmers, and so that's why I'm holding a tablespoon of soil. So a couple of things, we'll go out and have a look at the size of a hectare in just a moment, but in the theme that we're in at the moment, so I've got my pot, and you'll see there now that we've got some lovely shoots starting to develop up now as they come looking for the sunlight to be able to photosynthesize, and we'll look at photosynthesis in another one of these sessions. So we'll just pop them in there and we'll have a look. I gave them a water. Make sure you're watering your peas a couple of times, 2 or 3 times a week, depending on how dry it is. And our plants are looking really good in here. So look at that now, look at the development on that plant. The root is going right down, and we talked about the roots getting really long. It's starting to pull out some side roots there. And there's our little shoot starting to push up towards the sunlight. Depending on how deep you planted your seed, the shoot will keep going up. These were obviously quite shallow, but that's looking really good now. There's a couple in here looking similar. It's got a shorter root. So we'll just pop out and have a look at the field and have a look at the size of a hectare. Okay guys, so this is the field behind me now here. It's a field of potatoes, and we love potatoes in our waffles and in our Mrs. products. So this field here, in front of me, this potato field, is about 4 hectares. So to put that into context, this field potentially, by a 1% increase in organic matter, could hold an additional 1.2 million litres of water. So phenomenal figures, and we're working really hard with our farmers to do that. And put that into consideration that we grow 10,500 hectares of peas. So a huge area of peas to look after and manage, and a lot of farmers to work. So there's a lot we can do to help with World Earth Day. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.